It's time to talk some Florida State football as we've got Virginia Tech coming up on Saturday. What do the Noles have to do to win? And what do they need to do to convince people that they are truly a top 5 team and ready to win the ACC?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for the everydayers that make this a great show. I appreciate it, and please come back as soon as you can. Like, thumbs up, all that stuff. Share this podcast, and above all else, please comment. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Odyssey, it's Apple, it's Spotify. If you want to find it on YouTube, wherever you want, you can get it for free. And again, we are part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Today, I want to talk about some key components, the primary things that not only are going to help them beat Virginia Tech, but this, I know that Coach Norvell or any coach in his situation would not discuss it in this manner, but he would talk about the big picture of this one game. You know, this is the thing we have to do for this game, but they're really bigger picture beyond it, because the 3 keys that I'm going to talk about in segment 1, they lead into segment 2, which I'm going to talk a little bit about the players that I want to see and helping with what's going on in segment 1. And those are the 3 keys. And then finally, how that culminates into college football, Florida State against kind of everybody, where they're at. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be very opinionated. I have some good news and some bad news based on the people I've spoken with, some other people that follow college football. So we'll get into that here in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Yeah, this is the straightforward podcast. I've seen enough of Florida State to create my own opinion. And like I've said many times, the most important thing in football, like in any other sport, is the one thing you can't control, and that's injuries. And I think right now that's causing a lot of problems for the Noles. I'll touch on that in all 3 segments, but it also leads into point 1. They have been atrocious at running the football the last couple of games. Without the sack-adjusted yardage last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, not because they had the off week, against Clemson, they averaged 1.1 yards a carry. So I have 3 goals, okay, just 3. And of those 3, the first one is most important. At minimum, they need to average 4.5 yards per carry against Virginia Tech. Now, I'm not saying they need to average that to win, because that's false. But I'm looking at this again as big box. Now, Norvell's not going to talk about it this way. Oh, we're just worried about winning this week. That's what all coaches say, and I get it. The only thing the Florida State fans and myself are worried about is, can they get to the ACC title game and then the playoff and make some noise? Well, if you're running for less than 4.5 yards a carry, the answer is no. If you're running for less than 4.5 yards a carry against Virginia Tech, it's hell no. They're not that good. They're not. They don't have the talent on defense to consistently get up there, play run defense, and load up and make it happen and then drop and do different things. They can't move parts around because they don't have enough depth. They don't have enough playmakers to run a complex scheme and make it happen. They don't have enough depth to run a whole bunch of different guys in the fourth quarter if they've been run on for the most of the game and bow up when they have to. They just don't. They don't have enough players. They're not bad, but they're nowhere near as talented as Florida State. But the numbers still don't lie. In the last 2 contests, exact stats, Florida State has 34 attempts for 150 yards. That is under 3 yards a carry. I do not care if you're playing the Giants and the Eagles. That stinks. They got to show, not only in this game, but for the rest of the season, injuries aside, because everybody's got injuries now. I don't want to hear it, that they've got the kahunas to run the football right down Virginia Tech's throat, period. Point 2, and this is a defensive thing that I will be surprised if it doesn't happen. Drones is a good quarterback, long-term for Virginia Tech, but when you have an inexperienced quarterback, especially a mobile one, ball security is probably not going to be great. When he's scrambling, you can pop the ball loose. He's probably going to have some throwing angles that he wishes he gets back, but he won't. Deflections, pop the ball in the air on a pass, and then just straight picks. At least two turnovers. Let's just say turnovers, not picks. It doesn't have to be drones. It could be other ways. I want to see at least 2 turnovers. I'm not saying that's the easiest thing to do, but it really shouldn't be hard against a team that's trying to get it going. Trying. And they had some success against Pittsburgh, but Florida State has more talent. And I think now that they've seen Pittsburgh struggle against Virginia Tech, that probably got their attention in the film room this week. It should. And if it didn't, that's on Florida State, but I'd be shocked. I don't think that'll be a problem. Number 3, and this leads back to 2, you'll get turnovers if you do this. This is the exact same thing I talked about with Thomas Castellanos and every other mobile quarterback the Noles have played this year. I know I'm beating on a dead horse, but they've been mediocre at it. You must keep the big-time athlete at quarterback inside the pocket. Florida State has been up and down with that. Now, they did better against Clemson, but Cade was looking to pass more. He can run, don't get me wrong, but he's not Drones. Like, Drones can really take off, and he's a big dude, too. He's 230 plus. You don't want him rolling downhill on some corner. That's not a friendly matchup. He's built like a fullback. It's a big dude. Over 6 foot, 235, I believe is what he's listed at. And the film doesn't lie. He's a pretty good athlete. If they can keep him in the pocket, though, and just make him a passer that has to read with the rush coming on, 3 or 4 turnovers is not out of the question. It's true. Pittsburgh got beat a few times on some key plays, and they gave up. Their offense was terrible, put their defense in bad spots. I don't expect Florida State to do that. They can hold Virginia Tech to 17 to 21 points, and they should be fine. That's kind of what I expect. But, again, you have to be able to do that consistently. Think about it. Thomas Castellanos, to be honest, in BC, for 80% of the snaps, Florida State was pretty good. But when they missed, like third downs, they gave up over 200 yards, or was it over 300? It was a lot. You can't allow that to happen. You can't be in a situation where you even give him 3 or 4 of those. He's got a big arm. He'll throw the ball down the field. And they've got a couple of decent receivers too. So Florida State's probably better outside, but I think that this is a great chance to show, okay, we've played these kind of guys before. Now we're going to make it happen. So segment 2, like I said before, we're going to talk a little bit about the opportunities that Florida State has to get right, if you will. But it's just a handful of guys. I've kind of brought this up before, and I think there's one guy they've done a pretty good job with, but a few more need to be extended because teams are seeing film with Keon, Johnny, Jaheim, etc. Need to spread the wealth a little. So that's going to be in segment 2. And I think it's not only to help beat Virginia Tech, but it's going to help you when you play Clemson. It's going to help you when you play Florida. It's going to help you when you play Miami. Any team on your schedule that you do this where you spread it around, then the other teams that watch film down the line, like all the Clemson film is what everybody's going to watch, and the LSU film. Those are the 2 they're really going to watch. Every time you play a good opponent and you spread it around, it makes it harder on the next team that you play that's really got some talent, all the way down to the Florida game. So far, Florida State's gotten away with some big plays with Keon, etc. He's got 6 touchdowns. I mean, he's a dude. Got to be more balanced moving forward. So we'll see if they can do that. All right. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. LinkedIn Jobs is there to help you. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've had this opportunity again here recently, trying to find people in regards to hiring interns and trying to do other things with marketing, etc. Even doing that is difficult. LinkedIn Jobs is something that's pretty easy to navigate. I'm very familiar with it. I've used it for years, but it's something that I think you and everybody else should probably take a close look at if you're trying to hire for anything, especially if it's something professional like accounting, something that's math related, business related, medical related. It's a great opportunity. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and higher. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Segment 2. This is the fun stuff because I'm a stat guy. I try to get this in as often as I can. My key guy offensively will be a surprise, at least to some, and it is also in the way that I'm going to bring it up. Lawrence Toafili. He's one of my favorite players. He's a kid I saw in high school. I think he's kind of overlooked a little bit by some, not all Florida State fans, because they got such a good running back room. Trey, etc., Rodney, they got some dudes. Florida State needs to be able to throw the ball around to different guys, and I beat it to death about throwing to the slots, throwing to guys not named Johnny and not named Keon. I still think they need to throw to the running backs consistently. They've done a pretty good job of that. I just don't want them to go away from it. Just to be clear, so people don't complain on YouTube on the comments, they have thrown to running backs. I just want to make sure they continue to do so. The other thing with this is something they haven't done a great job with besides Jaheim. I mean, they've gotten him the ball in a variety of ways, and teams like Clemson did a good job against him. But Jaheim's got 10 catches, 2 touchdowns, 151 yards, so he's averaged 15.1. He's a very talented young man, H-back, fullback, tight end. He's a pain in the butt to guard. But Kyle Morlock, that's a pretty good player. He's only got 5 catches for 57 yards, 11.4, not too bad. The 1 catch for Marcus Douglas, he went 42 yards for a score. That is a big human being. I still think there's got to be a way to get him the ball more. I don't know what the reason is that they don't. I just think the guys that are 280, maybe even bigger at tight end in the red zone, there's got to be a way you can sneak him across the formation after a quick block, 1 count, maybe a 2 count, and he goes across. He'll be wide open. Those are the kinds of things that I want to see just as starters. But the ones that most of the people talk about, and people have mentioned to me, whether it's talking about it via an email or it's a comment on YouTube, etc., the slot position. Florida State's got quite a few receivers. And the one in particular, just because his story is great, I hope Destin Hill gets the ball more. And by spreading it out, and he's a playmaker now. He didn't get recruited to Florida State by accident. He's been a couple years to get everything straightened out at home and everything, but he's here now. Let's see if he can't get into the action. It's off an off week. We're coming into a situation that's not the greatest defense they're going against. Why not now? There are other guys that could be too. Darian Williamson's got 3 catches for 34 yards. Maybe it's one of the other freshmen. Let's kind of see how that goes. But if Florida State spreads it around in this game, and again, it's all about film. This is something in the back, like talking to coaches and stuff, it's all about film. They're going to make their game plans, the teams they have coming up. And this is a pretty long stretch here for Florida State where they're going to play a quality opponent. Every team you play is going to see something different. Every time you get on the field, they've got film of it, for what they call all 22 vertical film. If you get the ball to guys outside the numbers, that's one thing, and Florida State does a tremendous job of it. But when you spread it around with a screen game and different short passes to these slots, tight ends, and running backs, it really makes it dangerous for teams to blitz you. And I think everybody can agree that Florida State doesn't want to see their quarterback getting hit any more than he already has. Heisman candidate or not, his left shoulder may not be in the greatest shape. We need to keep him healthy. So teams are getting a little more scared about blitzing if you're throwing short passes and you're smoking people. The other thing with that is that's just harder to key on the key guys. It's just simple as that. I mean, you're not going to double team when you're throwing to 5 and 6 different guys constantly. But when it's just Johnny and Keon, Jordan Travis, I get why he throws to them. They're very talented. I think Johnny's averaging close to 20 yards a catch again. It's ridiculous, but he's big play Johnny. Keon's got 6 touchdowns. Obviously, he's a big play dude, but everybody's seen that now. At some point, that well's going to run dry. Even if Jordan's just having a little bit of an off day, you need to be able to throw short passes, make guys miss, and get chunk yardage. It's the name of the game in college football. Even Alabama, their last national title in 2020, they threw a bazillion screens. They just made guys miss. That's it. It was not the most complex offense in the world. That's just how it works. You have to be able to do things like that. And Florida State, not that they can't, but they can get better. If you want to be a true national title contender or even a playoff team, the short passing game will help complement the running game. Like I know I was bitching about that in segment 1, but you can't average less than 3 yards a carry. That's self-explanatory. Until they get that fixed and corrected where it's easy to get 4.5, 5 yards a tote, short passing game, in my opinion, is the easiest way to do that. Just saying. Segment 3, I'm going to talk about the culmination of these first 2 segments, kind of Florida State against college football or Florida State against the world, if you will. Basically what that's talking about, I got some teams I've got written down here, some thoughts about matchups and stuff. It's more just a fun segment. But again, the goal is to make it to the playoffs. If this team played Florida State, et cetera, some of the things I think about and in some of the matchups and why it's fun to talk college football, because it's the most difficult out of all the sports, in my opinion, that I have followed in my life to figure out week to week. You're dealing with college kids, so there's some immaturity, et cetera, but this is fun for me. So, but before we go into segment 3, please note once again that Locked On College Football Live will be going from 11 to 1 every Friday. It's on the YouTube channel, every single one across the Locked On Podcast Network. It'll be here at Locked On Seminoles as well. If you are unable to watch it live, that's okay. It will be downloaded. It will be available for you. You can watch it Saturday morning, etc. It's going to have all the people from the different team sites, Alabama, Texas, whatever it may be, to talk about the different big games, to talk about the opportunities, to go into discussion about injuries, what are the matchups, anything you can imagine, that's going to be on the show. Again, it's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Friday, and it's going to be downloaded so you can check it out. It's pretty cool. Make sure you have some fun with it. I know I'm going to as well. All right. FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you're thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now. We're in the middle of the NFL season. We're in the middle of the college season. It doesn't matter which one you like. It's a lot of fun to check it out. Their app's pretty easy to use. You can bet on different parlays. You can bet on player props, all kinds of different things. Spreads, over-unders. You kind of figure it out the way you want to do it. Again, the app's easy. Check it out. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, segment 3. This is more fun for me than anything else. But I like to kind of speculate who would match up with who. I mean, you can kind of throw rankings out. Once you're in the Final Four, you're in the Final Four. Which teams would Florida State have the hardest time with? Which would be the most fun? Which one would be the best? Sometimes it's a little bit surprising. A team you might even think is the best team in the country may not match up with like the number 4 seed. Florida State, and I have no idea what their seeding would be at this point. We're way too early to figure that out. Florida State has some unique traits because of their big receiver. So let's just use that for an example. Georgia and Michigan are the most consistently sound teams over the last 2 to 3 years defensively. And they're back up at the top again. I think either one of those matchups would just be fantastic. A healthy Jordan Travis with, again, all those players I just talked about, Rodney Hill and everybody on the running back, out of the running back room, trying to complement that pass receiving group that's very top heavy, but still has other talent we need to see. What would Florida State do? How would they attack Michigan, for instance, who has some length, to put it mildly, and they are very sound defensively? How would they attack them? What would be the most likely way to get after them? What would be the best way to get after Georgia? They're both effective, but Georgia runs the traditional big-bodied 2-gap 3-4 defense. Totally different than Michigan. Michigan's a little more up the field, etc. Out of more of a 4-3 look. They'll run some 3-man stuff or similarities to it, but they are different defenses. What would Florida State be best at? I think in both those scenarios, if Florida State was fortunate enough to get to the playoffs, they would have to be very good at the screen game. And it's one of the reasons I brought it up earlier. Again, the objective here is to make it to the playoffs and make noise. It's not to get there and get beat 45-10. You want to go in there and make noise. They got the players to do it, but this is where coaching, fine-tuning comes into play, and you got to get it done in the regular season. You got to prove to yourself that you can do it. So the screen game is part of it. Bubble screens, tunnel screens, traditional screens. I brought up Lawrence Tofili. There's a reason. I think he's very undervalued. And I just don't think that other teams, quite honestly, would do a very good job of slowing down Florida State's running backs. I think Hill and all those guys, they can catch. You get them one-on-one, you could have a defense like Michigan's completely stymieing your attack. But you get a flat pass to a kid like Rodney Hill, he might run over a guy, you might make a miss, he might do a little of both between a couple of guys, and it's 60 yards to the house. Short passes and screens are a way to complement your offense when you're going against a team that's just very good at what they do. It has similar talent and is well coached. Michigan and Georgia obviously are both. Another matchup I'd like to talk about just for a second, and this is just fun because I think they're the most fun team to watch this year. I'm not saying they're the best. I'm a little concerned about their defense, but Washington. Now, if you don't know, Penix, the quarterback for Washington, played at Tech High School in Tampa. That's why I'm familiar with him, because I lived in Tampa for quite a while. He can throw it all over the yard. He's had some injuries and stuff, so he doesn't run near as much as he used to, but he can. Florida State, how would they attack him? Because they don't have one. They don't have two. They have 3 NFL receivers, flat out. Flat out. They have 3. You're not going to just completely stop it. Would you just play cover 3, cover 4, and play really passive and try to make them inch their way down the field? Would you mix it up with blitz? Or would you just say, screw it, and let's come get this guy and try to create some havoc? I don't know if there's an answer to stop Washington, because like anything that is regarded with 20-plus yard passes, 30-plus, 40, you see Washington on all the sheets. But I think they are the most unique team for anybody, not just Florida State, to try to stop. If Washington were to make the playoffs, it would just be fun. What would Penix be able to do? Now, you also got to remember, they know their defense too. It's okay. It's not as good as like Florida State or Clemson or Michigan or Georgia. It's just good in spurts, but it's not dominant. So they got to score. They'd have to be aggressive against Florida State, and they'd have to look to score 40 to win. That's my opinion, and I'm pretty sure they know it. Again, not that any coach would admit that, but that's what I think. Washington, me against Florida State would just be a tremendous game, and that would be a lot of fun. The last team that I want to kind of mention, and I don't know how to really put it into perspective, because they always seem to find a way to screw up despite how much talent they have, and that's Texas. I think if they win this weekend against Oklahoma, their blood rival, the Red River rivalry, if they win that game, I mean, the Big 12 is terrible. It's terrible. Kansas, they already beat them. Their quarterback was banged up. They caught him at the right time. Kansas State could be a possibility, but if Texas doesn't do it, man, then when is it? The Jonathan Brooks kids, tremendous, etc. The offensive line is fantastic. The mullet, as I like to call him, Quinn Ewers, he finally cut his hair, looks a little more normal, but he's not great, but he's got a lot of talent. In their receiving corps and running back room, I mean, that's quite a talented group. I'd imagine you're looking at a unit that can make it happen, and quite frankly, they could beat anybody on a given day. But it's not as much about matchups with them. I just wonder if they're going to believe, because they don't have any of those kids that have played and been big-time players in the playoff. It's different. Florida State didn't either last year, so it'd be a unique situation. The advantage Florida State would have there is the experience just in general. I don't know if there's a more experienced team in the top 10 in the nation than the Noles right now. And I think at some point, especially if you got a 60-year senior quarterback, that has to help, right? You would think so. And that's the kind of game where I'm not saying Texas doesn't have talent in their secondary. They got talent everywhere. I wouldn't be as disappointed if they leaned a little more on Johnny and Keon, because if you hit, especially early, if you hit a couple of big plays, that team that's not used to playing in those big games on a national stage outside of their conference and whatnot, it's going to be a little more difficult. Yeah, I know they beat Alabama, and that's great, but that's still early in the season, and it's one game. Texas hasn't been to the playoff yet. It's going to be interesting if that were to happen. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of go into a hypothesis with some of those situations, and I think it would be fun for any of those games to take place. And again, it's why college football is just so wonderful, because there's no limit to the number of possible matchups within the game. That could be great. So it's a lot of fun, and I know I enjoy it, and I hope you do too. Before I get out of here, please smash that like button, hit that subscribe, and make sure you share this podcast. And as always, please comment. I love to hear what you got to say. If you got something to comment about Virginia Tech, if you've got something to say in regards to one of the upcoming games, an injury, a player situation, whatever it might be, happy to listen. Everybody have a great day, though. Thank you very much. Take care.